as we said in the morning, the main kind of practitioners of this text is the Mahayana people. If you explain more detail, there are two types. One is the Sutrayana path of program, the kind of paramitas, and the second is Vajrayana. So there are two types. So first, then the Mahayana kind of Sutrayana path. What is it? It's not there. No, okay, yeah, this there. The path, as explained in the morning, as for those excellent living beings who desire supreme enlightenment, I shall explain the perfect methods taught by the spiritual teachers, as it is said like this. Therefore, the method or the skillful means side, the aspiration bodhicitta with its training, and the action bodhicitta with its training. The first, the aspiration bodhicitta with facing paintings, statues, and so forth of the completely enlightened one, the relinquish and excellent teaching, offer flowers, incense, whatever you have, with the 7-part offering from the prayer of noble conduct, and with the thought never to turn back till you gain ultimate enlightenment. With strong faith in the 3 jewels, kneeling with one knee in the ground and your hands pressed together, first of all take refuge 3 times. So first, the accumulating the merit. You kind of kneel down and fold your hands in front of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and then make all the offerings of flowers, etc., the 7 offerings. There are 3 different ways of understanding these 7 offerings. Whichever you like, these different 3 ways of 7 offerings, you can take it. Generally, the 7 offerings is like this 7th branch practice, like in the 7th branch is prostration, offering, purification, etc. This 7, as I said in the Samanta Buddha kind of dedication prayer in the text, and then do the special refuge, the special time till enlightenment, special object, all the sentient beings, and the object of special object, the Buddha with the three kayas, the Dharma, all the teachings and experience, and then all the bodhisattvas of great, of all the levels of bhumis in front of them all. Then we go refuge, and we go do the special refuge of Mahayana or the Bodhisattva. Then we have to train in three things. The three trainings, the loving kindness and compassion. We have to train in loving kindness and compassion. And therefore, first the aspiration bodhicitta, and then action bodhicitta. So this you will receive tomorrow. The bodhisattva vows you receive tomorrow. I think I should give them. I think it is okay. Then you should receive this. It's okay to receive the bodhisattva vows. And that time, and then we will do the bodhisattva vows, and that time I will tell what to do and not to do. And today, with that, to get this kind of aspiration, first we need to have the causes. And as we discussed this morning, the refuge, kind of general refuge we have discussed in the morning. The special refuge is something it is like turning your mind in a proper way. The sound system is not working very properly, it seems. I can hear only in one ear, not the other side. I also forgot where I am. Tomorrow we give the instructions about the Bodhisattva vows. So we are in a very holy and sacred place. It's very good to do the accumulation, like prostration, offering, and things like that. I'm sure you are doing it, and it's important to do it, so I don't need to say much. When we are in this really auspicious and fortunate situation, then the bodhicitta is difficult to hear and listen, so therefore the sound system shows that it is not easy to get the bodhicitta. Maybe we should drink the tea now first.
So we need to first develop an attitude of love and compassion in order to develop bodhicitta. So the root of bodhicitta is compassion. So we need to have compassion as if we were a mother or a nurse. So we need to So we need to develop natural compassion. And in order to bring this to its up to its measure, we need to first make the offerings of the 7 branches and so forth, and gradually train our minds. And then we will need to make it so that our mind is able to become compassionate. And so, in order to do this, we have the methods of thinking of all beings as our mothers, as having been our mothers, and remembering their kindness. And so we need to train our mind by meditating in this way. And so the first section is to remember that all sentient beings have been our mother and think that they have been as kind to us as mothers have. So thinking of them as mothers and meditating upon compassion in this way. So at this point, we really should have an explanation of previous and future lives. So whether we have that, it's okay to have that explanation or not, but in any case, we need to first speak about this. Generally, when we talk about mother, it's like using it as an illustration. So generally, mothers have great compassion and love for their children. And so this is why they're used as an example. But it's not necessarily that it has to be a mother. You can also meditate upon a really dear friend or someone who's very close to you, or thinking about other people, all other sentient beings who have been kind and affectionate for you. And so you can think about these people in this way. So in Buddhism, we do assert that there is reincarnation, and we do talk about the logic of proving the reincarnation. We prove it through the logic of the mind coming from a previous instant and so forth, and many other logics. There are also people these days, quite a few people these days, who can actually tell stories from their previous lives and remember this. And so this is something that we need to take notice of. And it's important that we think about this carefully. But here, in this instant, what we are talking about is using the mother as an example. And so when I'm speaking here, I'm speaking primarily in terms of using the mother as an example. But when you listen to this, you don't necessarily need to think of this as your mother. If your mother is very important to you, and you have this really wonderful, good feeling for that, then of course use your mother. But if that is not the case, then you can use anyone who is loving and compassionate for you, a good friend or a close friend. For example, when I was young, I also am someone who was born from a mother's womb. And so I've experienced having a mother and experienced the feelings of this. And so if we all join this with some of our own, so if I join this explanation with my own experience, my own family feelings, first, when we're born, our bodies are this this mass of flesh that's really comes out of the mother and the father's bodies. And so it's produced by the mother and the father. And our mothers give us all of our food and all of our clothes and everything we need when our bodies are cold. In my homeland, we don't have any central heating or any machines to heat the house. So when the child gets cold, then the mother immediately brings the child and puts him inside her clothes, and so keeps him on there. And so our furnace is the mother's body. And so everything that we get comes from the mother. All of our cleaning, our mother does all the cleaning for us. And so from the very young time, with great kindness and affection, she feeds us milk from her breast and gives us the food, cleans up all of, cleans our diapers and so forth. And even from the very way that she speaks to him, we can see how the affection that the mother has for us. And it's not only that she helps us when we're so young, when we are babies. Even when we have grown older, she still gives us our food and clothes without any regard for her own possessions, out of her own things, even at her own cost. She disregards her own problems in order to be able to provide for her children. So in this way, in many ways, she does everything to be kind and affectionate and loving for her child. And so this is just thinking about the loving parents. You don't need to worry about this anymore. I'm just talking about loving parents. And so in this way, our parents are, for these reasons, our parents are very kind to us. Their kindness is almost unbearable. So they go through such difficulties, they shed so many tears over us, and disregard all of their difficulties for us. And so in this way, all they think of in their mind, all they feel in their heart is about their children, their sons and daughters. And so now these parents, are stuck in the suffering of samsara, with nothing to do and experiencing unbearable suffering. And so for this reason, we need to develop really strong compassion for these beings. And then some people think of it this way. Some people have this sort of way of thinking about it, They think that it's not necessary to develop compassion through developing, thinking of our mothers. They think to themselves, well, actually, if we look at it in the other way, there isn't a sentient being who hasn't been our enemy either. And so And so they think that if we think of beings in this way, then there is no being that we shouldn't hate or that we shouldn't feel angry. And so they think that for that reason, it's worthwhile to develop hatred for sentient beings. What does that mean? Can you hear me or can you not hear me? What does that mean? Oh, you can't hear. You don't hear my words or you don't understand the meaning? And so if we think of people as people to have hatred for, then this is actually really not at all right. This is a question of not knowing how things are. And so one reason why this isn't worthwhile is because if we do this, there's no benefit, there's no help to it. Because if we meditate upon compassion, think about it in the positive way, because we can develop loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, then we can attain Buddhahood. But if we think about it from the negative aspect, then we're just going to get worse and worse and end up falling into the lower realms. And so there is no benefit to thinking about it from the long way. And so when you think about it, you have to figure out what is beneficial. And you should only do those things that are beneficial and not do those things that are not beneficial. And so thinking about things really deeply is what we need to do if we're going to practice the Dharma. That is how we practice the Dharma. Oh, is that better now? If this is better, do it like this. And so one way you can think about it is this way. And the other way to think about it is that why is it that people become enemies? Whose fault is that? So all of our parents, who have been so kind to us, have been so wonderful and done such good things to us. They've been so affectionate and loving for us. And think to ourselves, oh, we don't need to be grateful to them. We don't need to be loving to them. And instead thinking of them as people who have taken our lives, who have taken our things. And think that there are beings who have, when we've been animals, when we think of them as animals when we've been animals, think of them as people who have taken our lives for our skins or our bodies, then we think about it in this way, there is no benefit to think about it that way. When we think about all the animals, when we think about who actually is the master of the earth, we think humans are the masters of the earth, but actually animals have been the masters of the earth for many millions of years before people came. But now we think of ourselves as humans, as being the masters of the world. And so we use forceful and strong methods, violent methods, to exert our control over other people. And so whether we talk about this as the benefit of the jewels or whether we think about it as human cleverness, they're now underneath the control of humans. And so now we are oppressing all of these animals in this way. So, like, if they were actually to bring us to a court, then actually then the animals would win. If the animals were to sue us, they would win the suit, and there'd be absolutely no way that we humans could win a case in court saying we had any right to do this. So we have done many horrible and terrible things to many animals, and we can't find any reason why it is that we should do this. But it's just the only reason that we can't do it is because they don't is that they can't speak. But that doesn't mean that they can't feel anything. But we can, through the sounds that they make, their wails, we can understand how they suffer, and so we can see how it is that they suffer. Some animals, when they're brought to the butchery, they know what is it. They fight against it. And so we can see that they just are trying to run towards happiness and run away from any sort of suffering. So isn't it that we say that we want to go from life, go from happiness to happiness? So even without any eyes, someone they try to go to happiness. They're worms and beings without feet, and yet they try to go to where they will find happiness. And this way, all sentient beings try to go someplace where they can bring happiness. So all sentient beings are the same in having feelings of pleasure and pain. And if we think about it in another way, even if it's your enemy, there's a reason why someone has become your enemy. And mostly it's because we have not been careful. And we have not been and it's because we have not and it's because we have not been respectful and helpful to other people. We have not let people be their natural selves. And so for this reason, we become enemies. And so that's one way to think about it in terms of the reasons. And so the first reason is that. The second reason is that sometimes it's through all the sentient beings. It's through knowing what it is that we need to do and what it is that we need to do, should not do, that we can find happiness. But all sentient beings do not know what the causes of happiness are, the causes of suffering. And so by mistaking the cause of pain as the cause of suffering, they experience a lot of suffering. And so instead of experience suffering, because they have this mistake, they've mistaken the cause of suffering as being the cause of happiness, they experience much suffering. And if we use an example of this, for example, this is an example I've used before. If you like we have mother birds take care of the baby birds. And so every day, the mothers bring their baby birds. They bring in her own mouth. She brings the bugs for the baby birds to eat. And it's not just one time or another. They have to do it until that baby bird is old enough to be able to do it for themselves. And so the misdeeds, the wrongs of having do this, it's like an infinite amount of misdeeds. She's done an incredible amount of negative things. And it's not just that this mother bird has done this in one life. She's done it in lifetime after lifetime and lifetime. And so for this reason, she gets farther and farther away from taking birth in a good rebirth. And so this is the efforts one mother makes, a mother bird makes on the effort of behalf of her baby birds. And if we think about it, all of the sentient beings who have been our mothers, think about everything they have done for us. They have done so many negative things for all of for their children, and because of doing these negative things, they wander in samsara and the lower realms. And so, where does this come down? It actually comes down to us. It comes down to all of us who are their children. And it's because one is dependent upon the other. We're all dependent upon each other. If we talk about it in this way, in our society, there are many people who who get their livelihood through killing other sentient beings. And because of gaining their livelihood through killing sentient beings, they get work, and they get profit, and the reason for that this comes from is because we want to be able to, because those of us who use these will consume the meat from the animal, the skin of the animal, and so forth. So the killer, the butcher, that is why there are these butchers and killers. If there were no people who consumed the products, there would be no killers. And because there would be difficult to have any of the great factory farms where they kill people. In the old times, there were the more people there are, the more killers, the more butchers, the more pig farmers there are, and so forth. And so everything depends on each other. And so if we think about the world, the way it is in the world, when we consume these, it's saying it's an actual misdeed is difficult, but indirectly it does have an effect. And so if we think of ourselves and the animals as being close, actually, we need to think about that. If we think about, oh, I'm me, they're them, and just think about our own life, our own food, then lead out our own life. That's how it is. That's one way, but that's not what we should do. We should think about that's how we're same in having feelings of pleasure and pain. And so then we'll begin the feeling that we'll have a feeling of the responsibility. And when we see someone else who's experiencing suffering, then we'll feel like we need to do something for them. And we feel like we'll need to really do something to help them. And if someone else over there is, crying and yelling, and we're over here having fun for ourselves, then that doesn't work out at all, does it? And so that's the second reason. Now the third reason. Not only are all our sentient beings who have been our mothers confused about what to do and what to do, it's actually like they're all crazy. We are all like parent and child, or friend and relatives, but all sentient beings. If we all have a good, loving, and respectful relationship with each other, and we have this kindness that is hard to forget, but because we are so obscured by the affliction of delusion and ignorance that we have, that we do not see this. And so in this way, because our mindfulness and our awareness have weakened, then we are unable to see each other, and we think of ourselves as each other as enemies, and then we do things to harm each other. The largest example is to kill or to take away someone's things, to steal things from them. But actually, if we were all to sort of live naturally and be as we naturally are, they wouldn't do this. But because we are under the control of the afflictions, then it's like we've all become crazy through this. For example, if there's someone who's crazy or someone who's insane, then they do various different things. And when someone is insane and does something wrong, then we don't necessarily get angry then. We say, that they've lost their mind. There's nothing we can do. But that's what happens. That's how we think of it, right? We say, oh, they can't do it. They're insane. They can't do it. Even if they were to slap us, we wouldn't think about it. If you always respond to people who are insane, there's the chance that you'll become insane yourself. There's a story about this. I don't know if this is the right time. Well, maybe not. So when we talk about the afflictions, when we have the really strong negatives, when the afflictions, the negativities are so strong that it's like someone is insane. It's like they've had some sort of an illness. It's like they are really suffering from a very strong illness. They have no control and no independence. And so we need to understand that this is. And so we need to be careful, and we need to know how to be patient. And for example, if someone carrying a stick were to hit us over the head, we wouldn't get angry at the stick. We get angry at the other person. We say, "Why did you hit me?" and like that. But so we get angry at the person who's carrying the stick. And the reason for that is that the stick doesn't have any control. But because the person is carrying it, and they go tom and hits us, and then that's why the stick hits us. So because the stick has no control and has no wish to hit, and if we were able to think about that, we wouldn't get angry at the stick. We need to think of the person in the same way. The person is drunk on the liquor of the afflictions and under the control of them, and for this reason, it's like they've lost control. They are gone insane. And even though that person is not necessarily like that, because they have become under the control of the afflictions, they have done this. And so we need to think that actually it's not their fault. It's not his fault that he's done that. That's how we need to think. There's something that Gampopa said about this. It's very helpful. So for all of us, even if someone were to come to kill us, if we're someone who meditates on bodhicitta and so forth, we should not get angry at them. And if that is the case for a bodhisattva, then if someone is to come and say something unpleasant or even just a little bit uncomfortable or something like that, then of course we have to be patient with it. There's no need to say that. Of course we need to be patient. And so in the old day, there are a lot of stories about various. The great lamas of Tibet often had a lot of connections with so there's questions of the status, and often there were lamas who made connections with the Uyghur or the Mongol or the Chinese emperors, and they developed such different status, and so sometimes they'd even get various red little things, red things red jewels to put around their neck, or they'd get something to wear on their head, uh, uh, something to wear on their head to indicate their status. And if they just lose that for a second, then their face immediately turns red with anger, and often their attendants are even more difficult than that. And when you think about it, actually, it's very strange. And for once, to think about it, there's a reason for that sort of system, but sometimes when you look at it, it seems like they just want their own happiness, and like they don't have any thought about any wish for benefiting of others, any sense of compassion or any sense of bodhicitta. And that's kind of strange, isn't it? And so in these ways, it doesn't quite fit together. So when we meditate upon bodhicitta, so it's as it is said that when the Buddhas do not vilify any sentient being who is who is under the control of the afflictions. If you have the afflictions, then the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas will not give up you. They won't cast you aside or give up you in any way. It's not like they're going to say to you, "Oh, you've got afflictions. I can't take care of you. You go away." If that were how it is, then the Buddha would have given up on sentient beings. But it's impossible for the Buddha or Bodhisattvas who are on the Bodhisattva levels to give up on sentient beings. And so we need to train following the example of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. And so when people say something that says something not so nice or something that's not pleasant, then it happens. But and so. And so for some reason, sometimes this happens, and we show an expression of something that happens, one little expression of discipline, of disappointment, or so forth. But we are not should not allow ourselves to have grudges. If we were to hold a grudge, then we would be going against the training of the Bodhisattva. We'd be going against the Bodhisattva vow. We'd basically be contradicting all of the treatises, all of the texts that we study. And so it's very important to think about it in this way. So that was the third, so now we've come to the fourth. The fourth is to think about the suffering of our mothers. And so when we talk about compassion, it is primarily focusing on the suffering of sentient beings. Remembering that there is no sentient being who does not want to be free of suffering. All sentient beings want to be free of their suffering. Isn't it that how it is? Sometimes when we think about the beings, about the suffering of beings in the lower realms, it's difficult for us. We can't see the hells, we can't see the hungry ghosts. But if we look at the situation in this world, we look at the nature, how things actually are in this world, we see that there are many hellish places. There are many wars and hellish places in many different. We can think of the suffering in these war-torn countries as being like the suffering of the hells. And so it is extremely important that we definitely develop compassion for this. And in some such places, there's nothing to eat. There's nothing to make any clothes out of. There isn't any medicine to keep their health. There are no parents to care for their children. There are no kind friends. There are no governments or non-governmental organizations to help or take care of the people. places where there's no hope, no one to hope for, no one to place your hopes in, or no one to think about. And so, in the very least, it's important to make prayers on behalf of people like this. Sometimes, we know about all the news in the world. We read, and that person died over there. Oh, yeah, they have that war over there, right? And when we think about, there was that earthquake. Oh, there are a lot of people who died there. We say, oh, they all died, except we don't really. But we don't think about the feeling of suffering. We don't think about these people who have made of flesh and blood, who without wanting to, have to experience all of the suffering. We don't think in that way, do we? But if we are someone who is developing bodhicitta within ourselves, we really need to think about this. If we read the newspaper, we should. We can use this for the benefit of others. Watching the TV, we can use this as a way to bring benefit to others. And if we can train in bodhicitta so when we are training in bodhisattva, if you're not training in bodhisattva, you may think, what is it? You think that there's nothing you can do. So there are people who say, well, if we train in bodhicitta, how can we help? And so if we think of it, actually, so if we think, actually Marpa did all this in the past. Maybe we should go. If we had Marpa in the past, he would have brought out the stick and beat us, wouldn't he? So maybe we need someone like that to come and do this. So we need to think about it. We need to think about it. Everything we do, we need to bring it to the benefit of other sentient beings. Many great masters of the past stayed in mountain retreats. With their body and their speech, they were not in the human society, but with their minds, they were bringing benefit to sentient beings. When you are bringing benefit to other sentient beings, it does not mean that you have to be in a big group and give a big empowerment. It doesn't mean that you have to bring truckloads of food and bring in lots of food and medicine with a big banner on the truck saying, oh, this is for the benefit of sentient beings. If you can do that, of course, it's great. It's wonderful. It's a great merit. But even if you can't do that, there are many ways to bring benefit to sentient beings. As the great Lorepa said, even if Lorepa said we need the instructions that even if there were more than 30,000 people, then we couldn't have a larger gathering. If we had only had one sentient being, then it wouldn't mean that we'd have greater benefit. We need the instruction on how to develop this. And this instruction is the method of meditating upon emptiness and compassion. If we have this instruction on emptiness and compassion, then we can bring benefit to sentient beings. There's no need, if we have this instruction, to have many people surrounding us, to have many Dharma centers, to have many beings and students around us. It's not necessary to be a Lam like that. When we teach the Dharma, we should really be like. We should be like beggars when we have that. Be like beggars when we have this. Even if you only have one person, if someone gives them even only a single rupee in that day or a single penny, they think this is, oh, someone gave me something today. And so we should think of it. Okay, today I only did one good thing. We should at least be satisfied. Okay, I've done one good thing. I've been one thing. So we first think of ourselves, oh, we need to do some huge virtue. We need to do some sort of a great result. We think we need to be like rich people. Like rich people, when they want to get something, they get a car, they always get the BMW and the Rolls Royce. There are people we can point at like that. I hear that there's this rich guy. I think this might be a real story. And so because this person, he was rich, and because he was rich, he had to show this to people. And so one day he went out in a yacht, and he took some people out, and he carried a big stack of $100 bills, American $100 bills, and he just threw them away, just to show that he was rich. Yeah, these $100 bills, these are just like trash. I'll throw them away. It's just in order to show that he was rich. So sometimes we're like this. We think, oh, I have to do something virtuous. We think doing the huge virtuous things is great, but if we do these small positive things, even if we can only do one small positive thing, we should not disregard it or disrespect it. So we need to train in doing positive things in this way. For example, even if there is an elderly person who's not able to walk a few steps, and so if there's this elderly person who cannot walk, and you just carry this person for a few steps, then doesn't this help you feel peace and comfortable in your mind? And thinking in this way is very important. And so, in this way, when the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas of the past, they did everything for the benefit of, everything they did was for the benefit of others. Reciting texts and so forth. Sometimes when we think about it, we have a monastery, so it's become sort of a ritual to do this. It's not just like we have a monastery, we do a ritual, we have to recite a dedication. But actually, what we really need to do so generally, whatever they do, they didn't do bad things. If you do bad things, you need to change that. If you instead do good things, as it says in the 7 points of mind training, change your attitude but remain natural. So you change your attitude. It means it doesn't. But it doesn't mean that you need to pretend that you have great faith, a great devotion, or pretend that you're some huge Dharma practitioner or something like that. You need to remain natural in what you're doing. There's something that Shalmar Chukui Wonchuk said about this. In this he said that there are not many people who show the signs of developing love and compassion like a Buddha, but there are lots of people who show signs of becoming great siddhas. They want to become like great lamas who can show signs of progress, signs of powers, and so forth in this, but they don't really develop become Dharma Summitas. And so sometimes we think that we have so many things to do, we can't practice the Dharma. It's something different than as it is. It's like we have to practice the Dharma, and so we need to go get some special mala, or we need to get a special kapala. We need to get a thigh bone trumpet and all these different things and bring it into And when you bring it into a household where people don't have any faith in the Dharma, then all of a sudden they're all this, this skull and this thigh bone, and then it becomes strange. And even if the household that family was in the beginning a very peaceful place, it becomes a place of strife and conflict. And so if you're able to get, a proper thigh bone trumpet, that's fine. But it's difficult to get a really true, authentic thigh bone trumpet. So, if your family has been peaceful up to now, you need to make sure your family continues being happy. Just as what you need to add to what you've done before is to change your attitude, to change your mind, to make your attitude more positive. Make your behavior better and positive. Of course, if you develop a positive attitude, your conduct will also get better and better. And this is not for the benefit of yourself, but for the benefit of other sentient beings. And to dedicate this to the benefit of other sentient beings, to offer it to the benefit of all sentient beings. And if you do this, then there's nothing that you will do that will not become a step on the path to enlightenment. And if you do it in this way, it's very easy. Otherwise, you might think to yourself, oh, what is it that I should recite? What should I do? And so it's important to think about it in this way. Also, now I can't quite remember what the third or the fourth, which is that the third or the fourth? I don't remember which. Now, these sentient beings who experience suffering, it's not just 1 or 2 or 10 or 100 or thousands or millions or billions. It's like this. An infinite number of sentient beings experience all this suffering. And so it's an infinite number of suffering. And because it's an infinite amount of suffering, we should have infinite compassion. But actually, when we think about it, changing our attitude is difficult. Because our obscurations of ignorance are so strong, it's difficult to change our minds. And so when we're doing something, trying to do something, no matter how hard we try to have mindfulness, it's like often it's difficult to develop, to take any understanding. There are some people who are unable to understand anything. And then finally you just get... And so, there are people who have such difficulties understanding things, and then, when you have someone who's unable to understand anything, and so finally when you see them, you feel like you want to keep away from them, so you don't even smell them. So there are many people who are difficult to bear and difficult to put up with in this way. And so because they're difficult to help and because they're difficult to change, and so we're doing this on the benefit of all sentient beings. And so this is, this is something very difficult to do. So it's like it says in the trainings of the Bodhisattva, even if it's for the benefit of one sentient being, may I stay for eons and eons in samsara. For example, the great Siddha Karmapakji said that he came for the benefit of one being in order to tame the Mongol emperor. And in the same way, we... Perhaps I should explain it in this way. If we develop a broad mind, it's important. If we don't do that, if we first have a narrow mind, and then we have develop a compassion when we have a very narrow mind, then that compassion is very narrow and limited, and it's not able to go very far. And so it's important that our compassion develop as vast as the space, and there's a reason for things. So we need to imagine it going throughout the sky. And it's very important to do this. There's something I thought of before that was helpful to me. So we think that if we think about if compassion were to come from the foot of a mountain or from the base or the bottom of the ocean, it wouldn't go very far. It's like if we have a light, then you're shining it from a low place, then that light is blocked by a mountain or by a house or so forth. And instead, if someone were to go up to the top of Mount Everest and shine a bright light from there, then it would fill everything in that way. And in the same way, our love and compassion needs to be able to cover all sentient beings who are throughout space. And it is important that we be able to bring our mind out to all the sentient beings throughout the space. Like there's an example of this, the old times in Tibet. Because the Dharma had spread and the Mahayana Dharma had spread greatly, when all the old men and old women, to think about, they would go out and do circumambulations, they'd make prayers on the benefit of all their former mothers, all sentient beings. They'd meet lamas or they'd go to sacred sites. They'd make aspirations that all those who hadn't met them be able to meet them, that all who circumambulated would be able to circumambulate them. So like they're sharing all of this, that I'll be able to do this. And so in this way, like they're trying to share what they're doing for the benefit of all other sentient beings who are unable to do this. And one way to think about this, it's a very good thing. But they didn't think about the whole world. They didn't know about the whole world. They didn't really realize what it was. They didn't know anything about the world. They didn't know it was a globe. They probably thought it was a sort of square, flat thing. They didn't think about any other countries at all. They knew nothing about America. Not even. And so when the English became very strong and powerful, then they took control over India, and so there was some connected with that. And so there were also some contact with the Russians, who were called the Urusu, the Russians. And so this idea of these Russians. And so when the old people would talk to, and they'd say that when they scold their children, say, "You're in the future, you're going to end up in Russia," or something like that. And so it's like you end up at this place where there are cannibals in Russia or something. It's pretty funny, isn't it? So they think of Russians as being some sort of demons, cannibalistic demons. But of course there aren't any demons or cannibals there, are there? So, they hadn't ever seen anything or heard about anything at all. They knew nothing about the world at all. But their mind was extremely broad. Just as like wherever there is blue sky, they knew that their parents, their mothers, their loving friends were all there. And they knew that we all had this connection of experiencing pain and experiencing happiness, and wishing that all beings have happiness and experience pain. They don't know about the place, but they made the aspiration. That's really amazing, isn't it? And so we're the same. And so this, the infinite world of the 10 directions with all the galaxies. We have this galaxy, right? Our world is in one solar system. It's like one small planet in this single solar system. It's like the third of these. And this solar system is in this galaxy that our solar system is in, there are how many billions? It's like, or in comparison to the size of the galaxy, it's like as big as a grain of sand. And so it's like this one tiny solar system. And it's not just that there's one of them. They're uncountable. The scientists don't know how many solar systems there are. It's just something that completely goes beyond any conception. And so there's no way we know what it's like in these other planets. But our aspirations of love and compassion, we can make aspirations of love and compassion for these other worlds and the beings in these other worlds. And so that's one section. And now, It's like we can also think about of our mothers coming under the power of their enemies. I mentioned this yesterday in terms of the ornament of the sutras, where it says that we're coming under there are the 10 different methods of meditating on compassion, and the first of these is thinking of them as coming under the power of a powerful enemy. And so the enemy is clinging to a self, and it is the enemy of the afflictions. We don't need to meditate on compassion for the enemy that is the afflictions. It is something that only brings us harm. It only brings us pain and difficulties and harm. And it's not that we're in the clutches of this enemy for a single day. It's like there's not a day or not a moment that we are not under the control of this enemy. We should think that all of our mothers, all of our former mothers, all sentient beings are in the clutches of this enemy and have been for ageless samsara. That is how we need to think. And all of these, all of our mothers, all sentient beings, if we think about friends, we think about the connection, the love and affection that we have between each other. There's this nice feeling of love and compassion with our feelings. But we have had this connection with all sentient, with all sentient beings, all our former mothers, for innumerable ages, and they're stuck in samsara, experiencing all sorts of terrible sufferings without any power or any control. And so we need to develop compassion for these people. In brief, it's as I said yesterday. So we need to think about, when we think about compassion, we can think about the own suffering that we experience ourselves in samsara, the experiences we have of the pains of samsara, and then we can go from that into the benefit of other sentient beings. And so when we think about it, people with intelligence, of course, when you say there are many beings who have consciousness, it's not just intelligence people. There are many animals who also have consciousness. There's a story. It's a true story that I have to tell about this. I think it happened in China. In fact, there's actually the place. It's written down the place and the time and everything, but I've forgotten about it. So there's a dog. There's an owner who had a dog. And they had like a cook in the family, and the master had a dog. And so in this place there are many different. And so one time they found the body of a dead dog, and so they brought that dog and they started cut it up, and they started to cook it, to make it, and they thought they should eat it. They thought they were going to eat it, and then that dog came. And when the dog came, when that dog comes, usually, they're very kind to the dog. And so they took some of the pieces of meat from that, and they gave it to the dog, and the dog would not eat it at all. And it was like looking at the dog, and it was really making a loud noise, barking very loud. It's like this was a mother dog. And she had just given and so she had just given birth, and she had 5 or 6 puppies, and they came, and her puppies all came, but she wouldn't let. And so the puppies came, and she wouldn't let the puppies eat the meat. And so she wouldn't let the puppies eat the meat, wouldn't eat the meat, and there was nothing that could be done about this. And so And so then she. And so what she did is she looked at her puppies and she licked them all on the face and looked at them lovely. And then she ate the meat and then she spit up blood and vomit and she had a heart attack and died. And when they looked at it, they realized, oh, there was actually poison in that. Actually, that dog had been poisoned. The dog that had been killed. And so everyone was very amazed about this. And so they took up the corpse of that dog and they buried it in the of the poison dog. They brought it into the garden and buried it. And actually they put the body of the mother dog in a coffin and they brought it, and there's they had a procession of people, 100 people in that procession. And even though it had been raining, there were like 100 people who came to that. Then 3 years after that, there's a cemetery. They have these in Chinese, and they have in China and in foreign lands they have cemeteries. It's sort of like our charnel grounds, but they have these places, grassy places with cemeteries. And so at this point, they felt like the master said, "Oh, we really have to put this dog in a cemetery." So they said to the master, but so all the people said to the owner, "You should put the corpse in the cemetery." And the owner said, "No, that's for human remains. It's not a dog cemetery." But everyone said, "No, this is not just any dog. This dog is better than any other people." And so these people finally convinced the master, and they brought the corpse of the dog, brought the body of the dog to the cemetery and buried it there. And then they made a gravestone that's in the shape of a dog. And so in this way, dogs actually act for the benefit of other sentient beings. So there are lots of stories like this, aren't there? Many people who come from abroad know about this. And so here we don't talk about it so much, we don't hear about it so much, we don't know. But there really are a lot of such stories. I'm running out of things to say, and I'm telling more and more stories. So if animals have this sort of affection and love, don't they? And so it's possible for all sentient beings to have this sort of compassion. And so if even animals can do that, we humans who have intelligence can also be like that. But if we think about it, actually we think about things too much, we worry and we think about things too much. And so there are more things that we do. It's difficult for us to actually make any decisions and decide and do anything. But now we've all gathered here in the sacred place of Bodh Gaya. It's very difficult to get this. And so to get such a good occasion as we have here is very difficult to hear. And so now we have a special occasion. It's the 900th anniversary of the birth of the first Karmapa, Dusam Khenpa. And what this shows is how the sentient beings, the great bodhisattvas, do not give up on sentient beings and come back lifetime after lifetime and it shows their great loving kindness and compassion. And I'm not saying that I'm a big person. It's as I said the other day. It's like So what's said in the writings of So it's as Mikyo Dorje said, that someone said, what is it that you have to do to become the Karmapa? The Karmapa said, it doesn't matter whether I'm the Karmapa or not. To even be reborn as a dog around the beings such as of Karmapa requires incredible amount of merit gathered over over many eons. There are many great masters who have been in Tibet, not just the Karma, but many other sentient beings who are radiant, very radiant beings who have been so very kind to us. And it's because of the kindness of these masters that the fact that we have the ability to know what it is to do and what to give up, to practice the Dharma, then that is their kindness. And the fact that we ourselves have this opportunity is something that is very, it's because of all these great masters of the past that is really combined in the kindness of our own root Lama that shows that we should remember this. And so, when we think about the lives of the great masters of the past, it's not like thinking about the worldly histories. It's not we should think, oh, there was a big war, there are many, big battle with many people, this many people were killed. There's all this blood all over. We don't need to think about that. We don't need to explain it in this way. When we look at their deeds and their examples, we can see what the ways in which they brought benefit to sentient beings, how it is that they continued the benefit for other sentient beings. And even if there are outer or inner difficulties and problems, how it is that they donned the great armor of courage and were able to do this, even if it's like they were going into the middle of a terrible battle. And so we need to understand this and take this as an example. And it's not just words written on paper in volumes or in biographies and so forth. This is something that we need to bring into our own being so that we are actually able to practice ourselves. And if we can do that, then only then are we really actually able to maintain the lives of these previous masters, maintain their examples. And so, in this way, all these beings are maintaining the activity of the Buddha Shakya Buddha. So the reason why the Buddha came to the world and why they developed monasteries, why they developed the Sangha, what this comes down to, it comes down to bringing all our former mothers, all sentient beings, on the path to happiness, so that they can gain the supreme happiness. And so, since that's how it is, and so whether we are monastic, or whether we're household, or whether we're tantric practitioners, whether we're Buddhist, whether we are a lama at the top, or whether we are a student at the bottom, all of us, what we need to do, what we need to put into practice, is to do everything for the benefit of other sentient beings, to help tame all of our minds, so that we will be able to see if we can help all sentient beings. This is what we need to try and do. So that's my opinion, or the way I think about it. Now I've run out of anything to say. And so now after this, we're going to have the lay vows, the lay precepts. So I'd like to ask everyone, I'd like to ask everyone to please come forward to be able to take the lay vows. And tomorrow morning, I'll give all of you the Bodhisattva vows. And tomorrow evening, or tomorrow afternoon, I have to finish all of my everything I have to say. So I'll try to finish that. So what is this? There were only 50 people before, so why is this? Hey, think about this carefully. This is only the lay vows. We're not giving out pictures. Oh, we're not giving out any candy. I don't know if everyone's going to fit up here. So it's only those people who've really decided. If you have any doubt, don't come up. Remember, if you take the vows today, giving the bat tomorrow is not any good. So make up your mind first. Oh, Mama, what are we going to do with all this? We probably can't do it up here. So maybe we'll just have a few people stay up here. And so most people can stay in the back, and a few people can stay up front. Maybe I need to talk about what the precepts are. It's refraining from taking life, refraining from stealing, refraining from... Remember, it's everything. Remember, it's not taking life, not stealing, not doing sexual misconduct, not lying, and not drinking alcohol. Remember that there's no taking alcohol either. So we'll have a few people sit on the front. How many people? So as many people. So we will have as many people as fit up here, and everyone else will stay on the back. So just as many people as there are cushions in the front.